Hey everybody, welcome back to the Saltworks podcast. I'm your host, Hallie Dye. I have a great conversation I cannot wait to share with you today. We have Misty Halley on the podcast, and if you know Misty, she is just this peaceful, wise woman who just tends to bring everything back to the Lord. I can't wait to share it. We go into the trauma that had shaped her life to become a people pleaser and striving and earning this love and favor that we so deeply desire. We talk about marriage and how that affected and how EMDR counseling changed their lives. I cannot wait to dive into it with you. But before we get into the conversation, I want to share a couple of partners for this episode. When you're in need of an x-ray or a scan, researching where to go is the last thing on your mind. That's why you need to know about Northeast Imaging. Northeast Imaging is a patient-friendly diagnostic testing facility that is doctor trusted and patient preferred. They offer MRI, CT, X-ray, and ultrasound. They have a friendly staff who is committed to focus on high-quality scans and intentional care to the patient. Plus, they're referring providers. And listen, it doesn't even matter if you're using your health insurance or you're paying cash. Northeast Imaging is almost always more affordable than local hospitals. The facility is conveniently located at 1703 Lammy Lane in Monroe. They are open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So tell your healthcare provider you want to go to Northeast Imaging. Okay, sports season is starting to pick up, parents, and that means a lot of running the roads. If you haven't already heard, you need to know about Chevron's loyalty program app. You may have seen people talking about on social media getting discounts on gasoline. Well, this is how. It's super easy to set up, and new users will receive 25 cents off per gallon, up to 25 gallons for the first 5 uses when you download the app. Plus, each time you use the app, you're earning 5 points per gallon that can be redeemed for future discounts, ranging from 5 cents to 50 cents. You can even get additional in-store purchases for earning additional points. Right now, local users are saving about 13 cents per gallon. Best part is the app is completely free and very user-friendly. So what are you waiting for? Go to the App Store on your phone, type in Chevron Rewards, and download the Chevron app to start saving today. And now I can't wait. I get to share with you my conversation with Misty. Welcome to the Saltworks podcast, Misty.
Thank you.
I'm super excited you're here today.
Thank you.
It's an honor to get to hear your story, but also be able to share it. And so we just thank you for coming on and being willing. Who is Misty Halley for those who might not know you?
Well, first of all, I would say that I'm a daughter of the one true King, because without him, I would not be here talking to you. But and I get a little bit emotional when I talk about that because he has brought me through a lot. But I'm a wife to Kenneth and a mother to Lauren and Kenan, and a mumsy to 3 beautiful
Mumsy, I love that.
granddaughters.
Yeah, 3.
Addison, yes.
Oh my goodness.
Addison, Sadie, and Parker.
So fun.
Yes.
That's super fun. Well, and I mean, I know it's probably hard to sum up all the things that you do, but you go a lot. I mean, I don't know if it feels like that to you, but I feel like, you're super involved in retreats. I know for a while you were doing the decorating, the aesthetics,
Right.
But then you've moved over into directing,
Right.
A lot too.
Yeah.
And then tell us about the day retreats, because we were just talking about that before we started
Right.
recording, but I didn't know a whole lot about those.
Well, the retreats, like you said, have always been really dear to my heart, but the Lord just placed it on my heart of trying to get the older generation to come and see what it's all about.
Yeah.
And it's been really good. Most people, they're saved, but like they say, they're saved, but not free.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal, just to figure out what real freedom is. And this day retreat, I don't want to give it all away, but
yeah,
there are different ministries in it where it walks you through of how to lay your burdens down, take chains off that you've been hanging on to, or if somebody else put on you, or digging down deep and seeing just what your struggles are, or even giving your life to the Lord for the first time. And it's a day, and it's packed full of a speaker and testimonies and just other ministries that give you an opportunity of self-reflection and just, get your walk with Jesus, just to clock out with all the distractions of life. And it's really hard to do that when you have a busy life of a wife or kids or work or whatever else you have going on. It's really hard.
Right. I love that. Yeah, there's so many people that can't make a whole weekend work, which sounds crazy, but it's not, because, if you need like any assistance sleeping, like if you need, if you
Right.
are a single mom and you're like, I can't find someone to keep the kids the whole
Right.
weekend, but I can come a day, like
Yes. Yes.
that's huge. I love that. I think that's amazing.
And so he's shown me a path, and I just try to be obedient now because he's been so good to me.
Yeah. I know that it's doing amazing things. That's awesome. You grew up in church, right?
I did. My grandmother, I had two grandmothers that stayed on me to be at church, and my parents were not too. It wasn't really important to them. So one of my grandmothers would actually pick me up from time to time, and so she had me involved in GAs, mission friends, choir, whatever, vacation Bible school, whatever was going on. And even doing things with older women at the time, I would get to see her serve. And when someone would pass away, her group would come together to cook food and just serve them. And that's always been, a light for me. And I just think that's where it came from. You start with watching somebody or just witnessing something like that, and it just, I don't know, that's where I think it all got started.
Yeah. Well, and I can see so much of that in you, which is beautiful, because I didn't know them, but I see those same qualities and things that you value in the way that you serve your family, serve the church. I mean, those retreats you just, like that, that's so neat. It's so you were saved at age 8, is that right? What was do you remember the feeling or the tug of what compelled you at that age? Do you know?
I just felt him speak to me loudly. My upbringing, my childhood was not the most stable. There was a lot of physical abuse, emotional, mental abuse going, and I was scared. And I still to this day have a lot blocked out, and I think that's just the Lord that protects us sometimes. But he just said, Misty, I've got you. Just come to me, and I've got you. And I gave my life to him, and he has had me. And that doesn't mean that I haven't strayed. When we get old enough where our mind starts going in all directions in your preteens and teens and, whenever, that he always has that still small voice that he pulls you back in. And so that's just for anybody that's ever been saved. The walk with him is a daily walk. It's not just a one and done thing. It's things that you have to read the Bible and stay in the Word, and your group of friends,
absolutely.
things like that. It it helps.
You definitely had sweet things like grandmothers showing you to serve and giving you that love and seeing how the church body functioned at a young age. But as you mentioned, there was a lot of really heavy trauma. Can you share that with us as much as you feel comfortable or led what that looked like?
No, I would love to, because I know, you don't realize it at the time because you're young and you're just trying to get through life. But you look back and you're just like, wow, God was with me. How did I not end up in a ditch somewhere? Because it would have really been easy to do that. My dad was not in my life at all. Even when my parents were married, he was not in my life. He had issues of his, he had other issues. I won't go into that. But the people that know me, I've in my personal testimony, I've gone into depth. But he passed away not too long ago. But just the trauma from watching the physical abuse to my mom and the mental and emotional abuse, it was just all the time. It's like you were just on edge. And I still struggle from anxiety, and I think it is brewed from things like that. It just you get startled or whatever. But my older brother was abused from trying to take up for my mom, and it just
Mm-hmm.
goes on down the line. And so then my little brother came along, and I would just get him and go hide. And I'd pray that, we will not get this abuse. If we hide, he can't see us, and he'll go
Yeah.
away. So at age 14, one of my grandmothers passed away, and I may be getting ahead, but
No, go ahead.
it was his mom. And I think she is what kept our family, together. And so, I hear that in a lot of families
Yeah.
of one of the grandmothers, and she passed away, and my dad left, um, and he did not pay child support, and we moved from rent house to rent house, and sometimes we didn't have groceries, and it was hard.
Mm.
And so, but I think the Lord has used all the hardships and things like that in my life, just to have a big heart for other people and want to serve people, and
Yeah.
it makes your love that much bigger because I know He got me through that.
Mm.
So
Yeah. I can't imagine. So at 14 is when your dad like completely
He left.
left. Yeah.
Yes.
And you didn't have like contact with
Mm-mm.
him anymore
No.
after that. Mm.
My brothers, only because they wanted a relationship. I
Yeah.
tried, and it had to be this, and this had to be done, or
Right.
I'm not having anything to do with you. It was very performance based or whatever, I had
Mm.
to fulfill, and I wasn't willing to do that.
Mm.
And I figured out really quickly that, that's not real love. And,
Right.
it caused a lot of trouble in my life going into high school, just wanting to be loved.
Yeah.
And I know I've talked about it before in my testimonies, and I talk to dads. Please love your daughters, love your sons too, but a dad needs to love your daughter, because if they don't get that love,
Mm.
and um, they will try to find it somewhere else, and they'll seek it. And
Yeah.
so that leads into the difficulties in high school of premarital sex, and
Mm-hmm.
it just keeps going,
Mm-hmm.
just want to be seen and loved. And
Mm-hmm.
it's all stemmed from that now. And I didn't realize that at the time,
Yeah.
but the anxiety got so bad at one time, I didn't know what it was from. And I went to counseling,
Mm.
and, she made me understand it all. And that's when I was able to write my testimony, and then everything started making sense then. But
Right.
until then, it was just a hot mess. Why do I feel this way? Is there something wrong with me? Am I not worthy? And, you go down the list.
Absolutely.
And it's from childhood. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people have those issues that don't even realize where it comes from until you
Mm-hmm.
start really digging deep, and then it starts just coming out.
Yeah.
And it's not always pretty. But
No, yeah, I understand that. What what was your relationship like? What was your view of God through this time? Because you had that experience at age 8. You saw the church function. You felt like He called you,
right,
or you knew He called you, I
right.
should say. But then, like, this is your reflection of your earthly father. Did that affect your view of God at all? And is that something you've had to wrestle?
I It did at first, and
Yeah.
I got really angry with God, and
Mm.
I expressed it,
Yeah.
and that's normal. It even says in the Bible,
Mhm.
people have gotten angry with God and shouted.
Yeah.
But he spoke clearly,
Mm.
and I mean, we live in a fallen world,
Yeah.
but it showed me that um, he is my earthly father, but my heavenly father is who I truly needed and
Mm.
desired, and the only one that could ever fill the voids in my life that I needed so badly.
Yeah.
But it took me a little while to figure all that out,
Absolutely.
even into counseling.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, I couldn't understand why my earthly father didn't want anything to do with me.
Mhm.
And again, he had probably had issues of his own. And, counseling really helps you to not take things so personally and look into other people's lives and say, I wonder what happened to them, or I wonder what went on in their lives
Yeah.
to make them feel that way. And so that helped me a lot. And,
Mm.
and just the Lord working with my heart, I try to sit back and and not judge, because every one of us on this earth have been through something, because we live in a fallen world.
Right.
And so I just try to, I talk to my Father a lot, my Heavenly Father, and when I'm frustrated or when I don't understand something, and He guides me,
Yeah.
when I feel like that's all I have.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing to have, let me
Yeah.
tell you. Um,
I think that's such a valuable message because I think all of us, whatever the background is, have not the right view of God. I mean, think about it.
right,
Everything we haven't relinquished, there's a level of unbelief there,
right,
probably tied directly to who we think He is,
right,
and how we think He loves or sees us,
right,
and how worthy we think we are,
right,
which we shouldn't be, but by the grace of
grace,
Jesus, we are
right,
able to approach Him boldly. But you know, when we look at that, I think what we tend to do, especially initially, but for me, I feel like this will be like a lifelong battle.
mm,
Of okay, I know that I realize now that's not true. Like for me, I feel like it was realizing, yes, He is the good shepherd, but it was battling and counseling, is He my good shepherd?
right,
Is He leading me personally?
mm-hmm,
Am I favored by Him? And that was hard to work through, and it's probably going to be hard forever because
right.
it doesn't make sense on
Right,
paper.
right.
That's
Well,
the
so many
beautiful of
people link
it.
God or our
Yeah.
Heavenly Father to their earthly father, and I've heard that so many times.
Mhm.
I never really did that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because I really did not have a relationship with
Right.
him.
Yeah.
I mean, if he would have physically abused me
Yeah.
or something like that, I probably would have
Mm.
a different,
Yeah.
viewpoint of him. But I've never linked them together.
Mm.
So, but I do know that some people have had that issue
Right.
before.
Well, and I just love that your story highlights, and what even like what you've said so far is like, not only did you learn where to go, but you learned who He is. Because
Mhm.
I think for people who have tied it to whether it was an earthly father or what, an experience that changed the way
Right,
you viewed the Lord or how you thought He viewed you, you can go to the right place, but you can still want to worship Him
right.
with in an earthly way, still
Mhm.
trying to become enough, still trying to
Oh, yeah.
perform, and I think like
And
that is
that's an
a
ongoing thing,
ongoing, yeah,
especially with women.
yes,
It's just we all struggle with, are we enough? Am I doing enough? Am I
hmm,
doing enough as a mom, as a
yeah,
grandmom? Am I good enough wife?
yeah,
Am I doing enough for the church? It is. It's a
yeah,
struggle, but the only one that can answer that is God.
yeah,
And I have laid that down so many times, and He speaks.
mm,
He speaks.
yeah. I mean, I can clearly see in your story the beginnings of why you would be inclined to people pleasing.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you said your father, who I feel like there was some protection in the Lord, not allowing you to be
Yes,
close
absolutely.
to Him in a way that I know you deeply desired
Right.
then. Um,
It could have been worse.
there was
Yeah.
some protection, like
Yeah.
that seemed, I'm sure, unkind at the
Yeah.
time, but I can also see the beginning of people pleasing, of like, oh, I do have to be enough, and I
Right.
have, I
If I
mean,
do more, will I be loved?
yeah,
Yeah.
you also are
Yeah.
stepping into protector for your younger brother. There's like
Right.
so much that was dependent on you
Yes.
at a young age. And what do we learn when that's the case? I've I have I'm in control of me.
Right. And then it runs into being self-reliant
Yeah.
and totally independent
Hmm.
and not wanting to ask for help.
Right.
And that is another struggle in itself. Just laying that down, because for so long I had to be dependent on
Mm.
myself,
Yeah.
and at 14 I did not have any times to be home, or I
Hmm.
had no rules.
Yeah.
Mom was very depressed from the divorce and all
Mm.
that my dad had put her through, and so she was just trying to take care of herself. And
Mm.
I literally could have done anything I wanted to,
Yeah.
and so um, yeah, it was dependent on myself, and
Mm.
so it's hard. to work through that because you don't want to ask for help.
Right.
And so, where does your help come from, though?
Mm.
So, literally, so it comes all from God. And so,
Yeah.
that's something that the self reliance, that's something you have to lay down for sure and know that it's okay to ask for help. And that's really hard for some people.
Yeah, it is. What for the person that's like, am I struggling with that? Is that me? Like, do I
Right,
struggle with the self-reliance or people pleasing? Like, what were the beliefs underneath that, would you say, that was like, well, if I do ask for help or if I do fail, what will that say about me?
right,
Like what was driving that for you,
right.
if you could
I
sum it
think
up?
I think it's my personality, number one. I just wanted to make people happy.
Mm,
And that's impossible in this world. And it can run you ragged.
yeah,
And you think you can do one more little thing.
yeah,
And some people catch on to that and you can be used and abused.
right.
And so you have to be aware
Mm,
where boundaries are. And that's something huge that I've learned are healthy boundaries for yourself.
yeah.
And that's just another thing that counseling helped me with was
Mm,
knowing where to set healthy boundaries, where it's extended family or even my children sometimes, it's like I'm
yeah.
going to do this and that's it. So you have to know where the line is or you
Mm,
will work yourself ragged. And then I think once you get past that point, you start getting resentful and then bitterness starts welling up, and that's not where God wants us to be. So
right.
that's why he wants to have boundaries, and
Hmm.
it's not for everybody else, but it's for ourselves.
Yeah,
That's hard because then you feel like a failure to them,
yeah.
but you have to be okay to say no. And
Mm,
that's huge.
it is.
And I struggled with that because I could not say no.
Mm,
And I still struggle with that to this day. But I've learned when I just get a feeling, the anxiety starts rolling. I'm like, Misty, it's time to step back and just, pray, have some prayer time and let
yeah,
Jesus tell you what you need to say yes to and what you need to say no to. So,
right. Well, and I think, like, because I have, I used to say I was a recovering people pleaser,
yeah,
and like, I mean, it's a lot because it, you pointed out like a valuable thing there was like, you genuinely want to make people happy. And I do
yeah,
think that it's born of good things, like you want to do a great job in all of these roles and these different
right,
hats you wear, and you do want to be a good mommy, you do want to be a good wife and grandmother, and
right,
all of these things. um but I think where we can get things upside down is like, I have to be this or I'm
hmm,
not enough, I have to be
yeah,
this or I have no worth,
right,
I've failed if I don't meet these expectations that either the world set or we've subconsciously set of
right.
what we think that should look
Or
like.
it was laid on you from
Yeah,
a young age.
right.
And so those chains can be
Absolutely.
put on you also. The expectations
Yes.
that you're supposed to provide for a
Yeah,
parent, even.
that's so hard.
Yeah.
I remember somebody, and I don't remember where I heard this, but it was like, for people pleasers, like, name 5 people right now that are totally pleased with you. I was like, well, that's hurtful. Yeah, I mean, because even like my own family, like, probably forgot to do something that Andrew asked me to do, or probably didn't
Right.
pack something in the lunch that the kids, like
Right. It's
they're
always
definitely not going to be
something.
pleased with me all the time
Right.
because I'm in charge of a lot of their discipline.
Right.
But like, when you word it that way, it's like, oh yeah, that would be wild because
Yeah.
that's not my job to hold everyone else up. But we don't flip it that way much, and we just tend to run ourselves ragged
Oh,
thinking,
yeah. And then you become bitter. And
yeah,
so that's where a lot of people get stuck
mm,
and they don't even realize why they've done
yeah,
it. And you do it to yourself a lot of
yeah,
times. And so we have to realize it. And I just ask, people just to get on their knees and ask God where the limits are, because
mm,
if you're pushing yourself, you're not doing anyone any favors.
yeah,
You're doing more harm than good. And
yeah,
um, I've talked at my retreats about all of our different spiritual gifts, and
yeah,
God makes everybody different. And if you're pushing into something that's not your gift, you're going to be miserable. And so you just need to seek him and his guidance and what he's telling you to do, and then back off of the things you're not supposed to. And he is the
Right.
only person that can tell you that.
Right.
And it's hard, but it's a practice. But when you start feeling it and hearing it, it is something amazing.
Yeah. You talked about in your notes, like learning, and I might be getting ahead, but learning to be still. Was that after the health crisis?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about that first then,
Yes.
because can you tell us about May of 2018?
So I'm going to go back a little bit
Yeah.
and talk about our marriage.
Yes, please do.
Kenneth and I had struggles, and like I said before, he had struggles and I had struggles, and then we got married really, really young. I was 18, he was 20.
Wow.
And we just both, we knew what love was, but I don't think we really knew what love was. And so we both came into a marriage full of struggles and butting heads, not because we didn't really understand where the other one was coming from.
Yeah.
I didn't even know where I was coming from.
Well, I was going to say, like, I didn't even know we were going to talk about this, but one thing I did put in my notes that's so funny, even about people pleasing, and I know there was a lot more than just that went into things we carry into
Right.
marriage, but like one of the things I learned in counseling with people pleasing, and I don't know if this relates to your story or not, but like I had to like uncover that there was a level of like pride or self-centeredness even in my people pleasing, because when I thought like, it's actually kind of crazy for me to think that Andrew should be totally pleased with me at all times.
Right.
Because, like, that's not realistic for him to never say, hey, like when you said this, or
Right.
when you don't, use words of affirmation, which is his love language, or
Right.
like, hey, like, I feel like you've been doing this with the kids, but whatever that looks like, that's reasonable for the people in my life that I am in close, relationship with, to say like, hey, I need this from you. I
Right.
desire this from you. Like,
Yes.
can we change? Sometimes it's not even asking for more of you. Sometimes it's just, can we change this?
Yes.
And like in the past, like if you're operating under people pleasing, that wrecks you and
It
your whole
does.
world, because all you hear is you
Well, you feel like
failed.
you're a failure.
Yeah.
And then that leads to fear of abandonment.
Yes.
And so, and that comes again from my childhood. And so
Right.
it's crazy how it's just
Yeah.
it's a cycle. And if you don't choose to break it, it will continue
Yeah.
throughout, your family,
Right.
from your children and their children, just like the Bible says. And that's
Yeah.
what it is. But we brought this junk into our marriage, and we didn't know
Yeah.
where it was even stemming from. It was hard. It was so hard. We were so young and had so much to learn, and things that he went through in childhood. And a lot of men struggle with this. How can anything in my childhood affect the way I am as a grown man?
Oh,
And
men
that is
and women.
huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and so he went, and this is part of his testimony, and he has an amazing testimony of healing from EMDR, and he went to almost 2 years of EMDR.
Yeah.
To understand, because he was a people pleaser too. And so in his testimony, he said, I feel like I try to please everybody else but my wife. I come home and she gets what's left.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem.
Yeah. Because you probably felt safest
Yes.
to him,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
good, but
Right. But
then there's the downside.
there are a lot of marriages that are struggling with that right now.
Absolutely.
And so it's the way they're in tuned in their brain, and it's just a cycle that you have to break. But you just have to go back as far as your childhood, even, to see where is this coming from.
Yeah.
And ask the Lord to reveal it to you, because he will. And there's so many people to talk to, and there's counseling and EMDR that can just get that true healing that Kenneth and I have true abundant life and marriage now, only because of healing from counseling.
Wow.
But going back to the 2018, our marriage was really, really bad. He was completely emotionally detached because of things that have happened in his childhood. He had put a wall up and he says, nobody else is hurting me.
Mm.
This is the line. I don't care what you're going through, what you're feeling. It was hard.
Yeah.
I pretty much raised kids on my own. He worked.
Mm.
That was, the thing. I
Mm-hmm.
was with kids. He worked and he provided. He was a wonderful provider,
Yeah.
and he
And
made
did that
sure.
feel normal to y'all? Like that felt like
I
this
mean,
is a
well, that's
way
what,
people function.
this is, what we do in life.
Yeah.
The man takes care of
Right.
providing, and I have this house over your head. What more could you ask for?
Yeah.
And so, but Brother Bill said this. He preached on lust this past Sunday,
Mm.
and the visual, the lust of a man, and or things like that. But he
Mm-hmm.
said a woman connects emotionally.
Mm.
And I was like, man, is that so true?
Yeah.
So he was totally emotionally detached. And so
Mm.
to me,
You were starved.
I was starved. I
Yeah.
was lonely. And because of my childhood and watching my dad and the things that
Mhm.
he did, he had an affair, had affairs after affairs, you
Well, and
know.
asking for, hey, like asking for more of him is asking for help to you.
Right.
Like vulnerability is asking for help.
Yeah.
You can't, that's not an option in your mind.
No, no. And so I thought he was he had another woman
Mm.
because, when you detach, that's
Mm.
usually what happens, but that's just the way he was wired. And
Mm.
I did not realize that until Miss Kathy Eichelberger she saved our life. She is
Mm.
the one that sat me down and told me what was going on and not to take it personal, that he had a fight within himself,
Yeah.
and that whatever comes out, that's his struggle. Don't take it personal. And it's like that helped me understand things a
Mm-hmm.
lot more clearly when she
Yeah.
told me that. And from then on out, it made it a little bit. It wasn't easy, but you know it made it easier to understand that he
Yeah.
was not. It was, don't take it personal, because he's not trying to personally beat you
Right.
down. It's
Well, it
just what's
also
in his heart.
it changes it to you because it brings an ounce of freedom of like, okay,
I
then
didn't
I
do
can't.
this.
Yeah, I didn't do this,
Yes.
so I can't control
I
it. So I
can't
can't
change
change
him.
it
Yes.
by doing more or becoming
Exactly. It
something
was.
else.
It was a
Yeah.
relief.
Yeah.
And so going back, I was at my wit's end. I
Mm.
mean, I was done. I prayed for the Lord to make me numb, because it just
Mm.
hurt so bad. And so I literally fell to my knees one day and said, Lord, I can't do this anymore, but I will do whatever it takes for him to understand how to connect with me
Mm.
emotionally or whatever.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, I was down on my feet and went almost 2 years I went all the way to the Mayo Clinic. We were all doctors trying to figure out what was going on,
Mm.
and they were all scratching their heads. But in the meantime, it put me flat on my back. Um, and, I needed that, because
Mm.
I was a person, again, people pleasing, go, 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 do for people. And I wasn't still. And he
Mm.
wanted me to be still and listen to him. And I think that's when my relationship got so deep with him, because that's all I had.
Yeah.
I just surrendered it all.
Mm.
I gave it all to him and said, whatever. And so,
What a hard thing that I hate happened to
oh,
you.
yeah.
And what a gracious, like,
But I wouldn't change it
truth.
for
Yeah.
anything, Hallie.
That, like, hey, you can't do anything for me,
Mm-mm.
and you just being is enough,
Yep.
you know?
Yeah, and it taught me so much. And people were like, I don't understand if you were in pain, but he spoke to me the whole time, and I heard him so loudly, because you didn't have anything else. You couldn't depend
Mm.
on yourself anymore. I
Mhm.
talked about being self-reliant. I couldn't,
Right.
he took that all from me, and it was for a reason.
Mm.
He wanted me to be solely reliant on him, and I listened to whatever he said. And it took 2 years, but in that process, Kenneth didn't understand anything but anger. He
Mhm.
didn't understand hurt, because if he did something to me and I would tell him it hurt, he would just say, no, it's just anger, but no, it's hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But through this and him seeing me cry with pain,
Mm-hmm.
his heart started breaking down and began to be compassionate in a way that I'd never seen before.
Yeah.
And like I said, whatever it took, I don't know how the Lord works in anybody's heart, but that's what he needed. And from then on out, it was not an easy process because he was still fighting his struggles inside. And so I continued to go to counseling, and she kept telling me, I just want to hear what's going on in your life. And at one point, I was ready. I was ready to leave him. I was ready to have a divorce and be done with it. And I literally asked her, "What do I do?" And she said, "I can't tell you that, but the Lord can." And she would pray over me. I was a Christian counselor. She's retired now, but she said, "I can't tell you, but the Lord can." And she'd pray over me. And all I could hear him say is, "Just love him. Just love him." And I don't know how many sessions I went to her, but every single time she'd pray over me, and he said that crystal clear over and over and over. And so,
and that can be frustrating when you're like, I feel like
how do
I
you love
am,
someone? How do you love someone that's being so hateful or hard and cold to you? Um, And it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And I know so many people that are going through that right now. But because of mine and Kenneth's testimony, they get to come to us and we can walk through that with them.
Yeah.
Because we've been there and we're on the other side now. And because of healing, true healing, and the Lord getting us through it, it's no other way. And that's why I'm so passionate about just talking about anything about my testimony. I'm an open book because I want to help other people. I want them to have or be able to get on their hands and knees and just cry out to the Lord,
Misty, I think I'm thinking about the wife listening that's like, that's how I feel. I think that's what's going on. And with the first thing we want to do is try to fix it.
We can't fix it.
You want to pull it out of it. You want to have let's have this conversation. What do you have to tell to her?
It stems from years and years and years of deep and packed down stuff that you may not be able to help. And we definitely can't change them.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. We can try, we want to, but everybody has got some kind of scars, or struggle or something they've gone through that they've packed down that they don't realize. And most of the time it does take counseling for someone to unpack. If they don't trust, if they have a hard time with trust, like Kenneth didn't trust anybody because, he was hurt and he had packed some things down. And when Miss Kathy started unpacking things, it literally took her telling him, that's not normal, Kenneth. That's not normal.
Yeah.
But that's all you knew and that's all you believe. And so you need somebody else.
And I don't see anybody else having these conversations,
right.
It's so normalized for men to not really be vulnerable,
right.
Oh,
no, because it's a failure and I can't be a failure.
Yeah.
Because I'm the man of the house. So, but she was so precious and it got worse. I can tell you when men go through EMDR, I will tell you it will get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
Because they go to those hurtful memories and they revisit every single one of them and it brings up raw emotions.
Well, and you mentioned anger earlier, and I think they say anger is a secondary emotion because if you're feeling, I think there probably are some such scenarios where you're like truly angry because you're angry, but I think more times than not, especially in situations such as that, like anger is the only thing that ever felt acceptable as of emotions for
and
men to have.
Exactly what he said.
Yes, and so if there is any emotion, it surfaces as anger, but underneath it, it's hurt, heartbreak.
Yes,
vulnerability. Like whatever. There's tons of disappointment that I've let you down, even but that's going to surface as anger and defensiveness because that's the only way we know how to function.
Especially if we start questioning them. I always saw that, if they buck up to us, they can make us stop. You know, they just want us to stop. They don't want to be angry. They don't want to hurt you. But that's their first emotion, I think. And I
Yeah.
think it's a protection of
Yeah.
whatever's going on. They just don't want to go there.
Right.
And it's a process. It's a long process for some that have gone through years and years of whatever's going on in their life, and some it may not be so much. You know,
Yeah.
everyone's different, but
Mm.
it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's huge. And I'm not an expert on EMDR by any means, but I've also heard like it doesn't have to be for anyone listening, like, should I do that? You know, like, should I seek that out? It doesn't have to be a specific instance, although likely we all have
Right.
instances that were
Right.
traumatic, but you can EMDR like
For
certain struggles,
anxiety or
yes,
yes.
that you're like, I don't even know where this originates.
Right.
Yeah.
But counselors are so good to talk you back,
Mm-hmm.
because if you're saying you don't know where it stems from, he or she can talk you back to whatever that you
Yeah.
probably don't even think it's coming from.
Right.
But it's even talk therapy is good.
Yeah.
Sometimes some people just need to talk and to be heard, you know,
Yeah.
especially in marriages that are struggling and the
Yeah.
husband's busy, or, you know, and you're a mom and you're trying to take care of everything and you just want to be heard sometimes. And so, you know, that's why I went. I just wanted some sound advice. Am I doing right? Should I do this? Should I do that? You know, I
Yeah.
wanted an independent Christian, a woman to tell me, you know. And so again why it's so important, why we should surround ourselves with Christian friends and accountability partners, not somebody that's saying that, you know, you're doing good, you don't do this or you don't do that. No, you want to do what's right, and you want somebody to tell you you're wrong or you should do something different.
Right.
But counselors, they're trained for that. And the EMDR was, I think it was created for PTSD. And so, you know, that can be from anything,
Yeah.
you know, but I just don't think people realize how much hurt comes from it's from your childhood, and you've just packed it down so tight and you don't even realize it's there.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it erupts.
It does. Yeah. So he was going through EMDR. Was that like at the same time while you were going through
No.
health crisis? How did that correspond?
So, and again, this is part of his testimony.
Yeah.
And the Lord, he instrumentalized all of this. I mean,
Yeah.
it was part of his plan. And again, Kenneth's work, his God was work.
Yeah.
And that's where he spent most of his time. And the company started not doing very well. And he just got completely aggravated and frustrated and ended up face down. And he didn't want to talk to anybody. He didn't want to do anything. He was very, very depressed.
Yeah.
But 3 friends, God spoke to them and reached out to him. And I'm telling you, Kenneth's testimony is amazing. So any man,
Yeah.
if you
I
have
know
struggles,
we
you need to
need to
get
have him
Kenneth
here.
on.
Yeah.
Please reach out to Kenneth. A lot
Yeah.
have heard his testimony. He's given it at churches and retreats and all. But 3 men reached out to him, and he just told them that he was sick. And one of them said, "Well, what are you sick of?" And he said, "I don't know." He said, "Well, the Lord told me to reach out to you." But the third one was the most, I think, the most powerful. And when he called, he wasn't answering calls. And he said, "You know, this guy's, you know, in Rayville, and he's not even anywhere close to me, so I'll answer him."
Yeah.
And Kenneth was at his barn. We have a farm, and that's where we both go, and it's just our heaven on earth. But he had clocked out. He was done. He was done with life.
Yeah.
And this guy said, "The Lord put you on my heart to call you." And he said, "Where you at?" He said, "I'm at my farm." He said, "Well, good. I'm in Rocky Branch, 2 minutes away, and I'll be there in a second." And so this guy told him I had tried and tried to get Kenneth to go to counseling, and it's just not what a man does. It's considered a weakness in their eyes. And so this guy shared with him his counseling experiences and EMDR and how it had healed his heart
Oh,
and brought him out of a hole.
yeah.
And he called me. He said, "I'm ready to go." And so it just takes people,
Yeah.
just letting God use you to whatever, you have to just say, "I'm ready for whatever you want me to do."
Right.
But you better mean it when you say it
Yeah, true.
because, you know,
Yeah.
there were times when I was down with my feet. I did. I got angry, but
Mm,
then he worked with my heart, and I wouldn't take it or change it for anything in this world, because that's where my true
mhm.
sanctification and redemption and all kind of good stuff happened, was when I was
Yeah.
in bed and seeking and searching for a medical treatment, and
Mm,
doctors were not able to do it. But when God got ready for me to,
yeah.
he started bringing me out, and now it's managed, and I'm on a biologic, and
Mm,
I'm running and
yeah.
doing what God wants me to do. But I do. Sometimes I struggle, and
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, He's trying to tell me something. It's time to be still and listen, because
Yeah.
you're getting back in that rut. So
Yeah. I was like reading through your story and just thinking like it, when you're, and this is so many of us, when your identity and your sense of worth and purpose are wrapped up in what you can do and what you can earn and how you can perform, whatever, different people can define that
can
different
wear you
ways.
out.
Wear you out, and once any of those things change, well then there goes your purpose, there goes your worth. And we see that
Yeah.
we're gonna grieve this, like seasons changing.
Oh,
When I'm an empty
absolutely.
nester, I'm gonna grieve
Right.
because I don't know that. I haven't
Right.
known that for my whole life. Especially for men in retirement, but also women, you're gonna grieve like that. Your purpose has changed, but when you feel every ounce of your purpose has been stripped, then like there
You
was
need to.
probably an
Yes.
idol there.
Right.
Um, and we have that at any turn of life. We realize those things, but reading your story because of that, I mean, you've been taught from such a young age that this is where your
Yes.
worth is. This is where, and okay, your marriage doesn't look like this. Well, then
Right.
maybe you weren't a good enough wife. Maybe,
Right.
I mean, you can just internalize these lies that have
Right.
no basis of truth. And the bravest thing you can do when your idol is striving and performing is to be still.
Yes. Because the enemy doesn't want you to be still at
Yes.
all.
Yes.
He wants you busy. In fact, that's where he wants you, so you cannot hear
Yeah.
that still small voice.
Mm,
But the enemy knows all of our weaknesses, and that's another
mm,
thing. He hones in on it, and you better
mm.
believe he will use every single ounce of it.
Yeah.
The spiritual warfare is real. And the more you do kingdom work, the
Mm,
more he's going to come after you. But the Lord protects you, but you have to stay in prayer
mm.
and ask for guidance, because, again, if your identity is in doing this, this, and this,
Right.
well, the enemy's going to say, well, you didn't do this. You're not
Hmm.
worth anything. So you have to be able to discern if it's the Lord's voice or
Right.
the enemy, because he knows us.
Hmm.
He knows how we're bent, and
Right.
what we need and how we need to feel, and he knows each of us. And that
Hmm.
it's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah, it is. And I just think that when we have those paths and we turn towards the Lord, and we talked about this earlier in the episode, we're in the right place, but we don't have the right understanding of who we're serving. And
Right.
sometimes because we have this love of striving, we can forget that our first love is the Lord
Right.
Himself, not His work, even. You mean doing
No.
good things.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You can be so busy doing church work,
Yeah.
and not you're not supposed to be doing that much.
Yeah.
It's you just have to find that balance. But if you
Hmm.
think that's, I'm doing the Lord's work, so I'm doing good, that's not always true.
Hmm. Yeah. So, what did that look like for you? I don't know if you said your specific diagnosis yet. Did you want to share that for anybody that,
It's ankylosing
yeah,
spondylitis,
yeah,
and it's a autoimmune disease.
yeah,
But the reason it threw everybody off is I didn't have the normal symptoms of
hmm,
swelling
yeah,
and this certain factor in my blood, but it affects your ligaments and tendons and
hmm,
nerves, and so it's not just joints like regular arthritis.
yeah,
And so it was rough.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Do you still have pain from that?
I do.
Sometimes, yeah.
I do.
Yeah. The biologics help, I'm
It
sure.
does. But some days are harder.
Yeah.
I know when I've overdone it.
Mm-hmm.
And, the Lord said, Misty, you got to step back. But sometimes you just have to push through it or you'll
Yeah.
give up. And I know that's not what He wants me to do.
Mm.
So he literally gives me strength each day, and I try not to think past a certain day. That's another problem that I had, just being afraid and the fear of what's going to happen with my body, this
Mm-hmm.
earthly body. And it's you can't think that way,
Mm-hmm.
because we're all wasting away. And I think in Second Corinthians,
Yeah.
um, our outward bodies are wasting away, but
Mm-hmm.
our inner selves are, it's being prepared for
Mm.
heaven. And so that's just what keeps me going. And
Yeah.
I wonder all the time. I kind of compare this to the thorn Paul wanted the Lord to remove so bad,
Right.
but it really is. But it
Mm.
keeps me close to the Lord. It reminds me
Mm.
I'm not in charge. Misty is not she is not in control.
Yeah.
It is the Lord. And I think I need that, Hallie. And I hate to say that because I am so independent.
Mm.
But I think that's why He doesn't remove thorns sometimes, because we get off in right field and say, okay, I got it now. See you later, Lord.
Right.
And I'm just that hard headed. And so I need that.
Yeah. The purpose of us walking closely with Him is not to grow more independent, but to grow
Right.
more dependent on Him,
Right.
and that's,
And I
I'll
know
be
He'll
learning
give
that
me,
as
yeah,
long as I'm
I
here.
know, but
Yeah.
it's in all of us,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I ask for Him the strength that I need to do whatever
Mm-hmm.
He wants me to do, and He gives me just enough. And so I'm okay with that.
I love that. Even for the busy mom listening that is like, I do not know how I'm going to get everything done, much less cook dinner and homework and what.
You don't have to do
The
everything.
capacity He's given you is enough. Like,
Right.
He made you limited on purpose,
Right. Yes.
and he's
Your
given you
house
what you
doesn't have to
need.
be perfect. Your
No.
food doesn't have to be
Yeah, and it
perfect.
won't be.
Go get pizza. It's fine. Your husband, I bet your husband doesn't even care.
Yeah.
And for the longest, I put these things on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you know, Kenneth and I got to know each other, really truly know each other, he didn't
Mm-hmm.
even care about that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
it is such a relief.
Yeah.
And I want to like encourage every woman to do like it's a test to know, to see what your love language is.
Yes.
Do a love language test, you and your husband both.
Yes.
And it's like, what's not important to him, you don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it relieved me
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I'm doing all this stuff in left field and he don't even care. He don't even see it.
Yeah.
And so it's a relief.
Yeah.
It takes
It
a load
is.
off your shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And just little things like that. And,
Mm-hmm.
that's some things I've taught the women that go through the women's retreats. I've given them love language tests or their spiritual gift tests,
Mm-hmm.
and tell them, God made us all different for a reason. We don't have to pull one another down to
Mm-hmm.
make yourself feel better. He made us different for a reason. He needs you to do this and he needs you to do this.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And then cheer each other on because you don't have that gift.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so
Mm-hmm.
that's just where I see things now. And
Yeah.
it's just a relief. And
Mm-hmm.
I needed that.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord knows what each one of us need. But
Yeah.
again, we have to be still to hear His voice.
Yeah. What does that look like for y'all now, doing like pouring into other people's marriages? And I love the phrase that you said, like when we really got to know each other. Like that doesn't seem
Right.
possible for some people,
Oh, it
especially if
didn't
they've
for
been together
us.
for a long
I
time.
mean, I literally feel like when we dated, it's all giddy. We laugh, we cut up, we have fun, we take trips. We don't care what
Yeah.
other people think,
Yeah.
we just laugh.
Yeah.
And it's so good for your heart to laugh,
Mm.
And do we fuss? Yeah, we fuss, but
Yeah.
it's so over stupid stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not like a huge trigger anymore. And that's what they call when you're going through counseling, there's something that it's triggered and it brings on the anger or rage or whatever you struggle with.
Mm-hmm.
There aren't any triggers, and
Yeah.
I don't have to be careful and walking on pins and
Mm-hmm.
needles. Am I going to say something wrong? Or it's not any of that anymore, and it's just
Yeah.
we just do our thing and meet
Yeah.
up at the farm like we're dating every evening, and it's just fun. And
That's so fun.
that's what the Lord wants us to be like. He
Yeah.
doesn't want us to have a heavy marriage. He
Yeah.
wants us to laugh. He
Yeah.
loves for us to laugh. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why my heart goes out to young women that
Mm-hmm.
are struggling in their marriage or with their worth or whatever's going on. I
Mm-hmm.
literally run to them. If God puts somebody on my heart, I literally run to them because I want them to feel that freedom. I want
Mm-hmm.
them to feel that connection with Jesus, that He is so close to you.
Yeah.
But you have to be still long enough to hear His voice. And
Right.
if you're not, you're going to miss it. And it's huge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's so good. We talked a lot about weakness, and you talked about the thorn when
Yes.
Paul prays 3 times. I prayed that he would
Yeah.
take this away. And he said, no,
Mm.
my power's made perfect in your
Yep.
weakness, I
My
think.
weakness. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Paul goes on to say something about like, I will boast all the more gladly
Hmm.
of my weakness, which
Right.
if everything's dependent on you, that is not an option. You
No.
cannot boast of your weakness to glorify the Lord,
No.
man or woman,
No.
But
Mm-mm.
like I see in y'all's story, y'all being able to be like, yeah, we've been here, and yeah, we still battle this, and yeah,
Right.
we're gonna wrestle this, and
Yes.
but we'll boast of that, knowing look what the Lord has redeemed and
Right.
used, and
And will continue to use.
yes,
And
yeah,
just for our daughters to
mm-hmm.
see us,
Mm-hmm.
they saw us, they heard us, they were there when we were fighting, but now they see us.
Yeah,
And so many marriages, don't get me wrong, some people, a divorce is no other means, there are things involved, but
mm-hmm.
people are so fast and it's so easy to get a divorce and just wash their hands.
Yeah,
But seek guidance. If there's
right,
anything to hang on, if there's truly just something that's like us, we just needed to dig
mm-hmm.
deep and heal some old wounds where we wouldn't have triggers. I encourage, please do that
Yeah,
because now our family, we all laugh and cut up. And it's just, I
mm.
never dreamed in a million years that
Yeah,
my marriage would be like this or our family. And it just creates a lightness from our daughters too. They're not on edge or
mm.
not worried. Are they going to be fighting today? Or
Mm.
it's uncomfortable for everybody.
Yeah.
So it's just yeah, it's
I love that, and just even the grace that you have for y'all when y'all are raising kids and when you didn't know. Like, I think sometimes we can feel so afraid that we're gonna look back and be like, "Oh, we failed." No, like we're all on the.
we're
There's
all gonna
time for
fail.
healing for all of these things. I
Yeah,
joke all the time, like,
I
"Well, my
failed
kids need,
miserably.
yeah,
I did.
my
Everybody's
kids
gonna
need
fail.
counseling. Sure, I'll pay for it. I'm
Right.
doing the best that I can
And
do."
that's you do the best that you
Yeah,
can, and we
yeah,
all do that. Do I look back and have regrets
mm,
and wish I'd have done something different? Yeah, I do, but I'm not going to hold on to that
yeah,
because that's the enemy again. And if you let that define the
mm,
rest of your life, you're going to mess up a whole lot that the Lord can use.
yeah,
And you have to, like I said a while ago, you have to discern the voice of the Lord and the voice of the enemy because he is very sly. He
mm,
can sound so good and so real.
yeah.
And he's not always with this, some scary monster with horns. He can
Mm-hmm.
come in the form of anything.
Well, and he can find good evidence in our lives. Like
Yes.
like
Yes, he
sometimes
does.
it looks real convincing on days where I know I'm not my best. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? And
Yeah.
so,
It's very scary to know
yeah.
that he can skew you in your
Mm-hmm.
mind so easily.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
that's why we have to be in constant prayer, and that's
Yeah.
just I've learned that from the years,
Mm-hmm.
and I wish I would have known it a long time ago. But
Yeah.
like I said, we can't go back and dwell on the past. We just have to, want better for for our future, want better, and
Right.
that's just what you have to look. You cannot look in the rearview mirror for the rest of your life.
Right. Well, I don't want to keep you all day, but I did want to ask because we've talked a lot about purpose and like that was something you desired at such a young age, watching your grandmother serve,
Right.
and and then feeling like, well, maybe it's supposed to meet everybody else's needs. Maybe it's supposed to be
Right.
calm enough. Okay, well, then in marriage, what's my purpose? Okay, well, now I've raised girls. What's my purpose? Now I can't do like I used to. What
Right.
have you learned that you want to impart to women that are wondering, what is my purpose?
And that was my question, I think, throughout my life.
Mm.
Like, why am I here? And the Lord He will tell you what you're here for. Like I talked about a while ago, the spiritual gifts.
Yeah.
That is very important to know your spiritual gift, because
Yeah.
that He put that in you
Mhm.
Himself. And so, my purpose is to serve others and show the love of the Lord, that He has given me,
Mhm.
the protection, the guidance, all of that. And that's my sole purpose in life.
Yeah.
It's not, do I do retreats? I love them. But do I have to say no to some of them? Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
I do. I can't do it all. Do I want to do this that someone else is asking me to do? Because, I would love to, but I'm full.
Yeah.
You have to be able to say no, and that is really, really hard. But
Mhm.
you have to be close enough to the Lord where He can tell you you've done enough. You need to take a break.
Yeah.
And most women find that really, really hard.
Yeah. I love that. Just that, like, in every season and every capacity, like, your purpose is to listen to his voice and to make his
Yeah,
name known, and like,
yeah.
if
But that's all
you,
that matters,
that's all that
Hallie.
matters.
That's why we are here.
Yeah.
And the quicker we figure that out, I'm telling you, it's a relief. And I needed that relief because
Yes.
I was self reliant, and so
And on the flip side of that, I could be performing my absolute best, max
yeah,
capacity, and not be doing those things and not
mm-mm,
living my purpose.
exactly.
So,
Yeah,
well, man, that was so good.
it's a lot. I
No,
know, but
no, it was amazing.
God is good, and He can be good
Yeah.
to every single person out there, but you
Mhm.
just have to listen for His voice.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming and sharing. I
Thank
know
you for
that that's
inviting me.
hard to dive in through everything, and knowing what to share and what not.
It
But
is.
I mean, you did just such a beautiful job of it. And I know it's going to mean so much to people.
But I encourage somebody, if they hear this and they need to reach out to me, or they reach out to you and want to get in touch with me,
Yeah,
please send them,
I will.
because I know God, He gave me this story to help others, and
Mhm.
so that is why I'm here.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming
Thank
and
you.
sharing. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for listening this week to the Saltworks podcast. We'll see you next week.
This is my story. This is your story.